Hi, and welcome to my video on angles, more accurately, different types of angles. One of the common things we'll run into when we're talking about vectors are the different angles and the different ways we measure them. In this case, we have an angle or a vector pointing up and to the right, but we don't have a good way to talk about the angle until we talk about the different ways we can measure that. There are three common ways we talk about angles. The first is the one that you learned in math, where this is 0 degrees. This is 90 degrees. This is 180 degrees. And this is 270 degrees. We could also talk about negative angles from the math, where this would be negative 90, negative 180, negative 270, and they're interchangeable, but I'm going to focus on positive angles for today. In this case, whenever we measure an angle, we always measure from 0, and we measure how far around we go. So in this case, we go up like this, and this would be our angle. So if this is, let's say, 35 degrees, that is my angle. And that's probably the simplest. It's the one that you're most familiar with. However, very rarely in the real world do we measure from 0 degrees like so. Typically, we measure from north. So if this was north here, the compass and bearing system says that this is 0. Notice how I'm using a different color. Math is in black, bearing is in red, and then when I talk about compasses, it's going to be in blue. So this is 0, this is 90, and east, this is 180, and south, this is 270, and west. So this angle doesn't count as 35. It counts as counting from 0 over to here, which is going to be a different number than 35. In fact, this is at a right angle from 0 to from north to east is a right angle, so it's 90 degrees. So it's going to be the complement, or the number that makes 35, that when you add it to 35 adds up to 90, which is 55. So if we're talking about this in terms of bearing, this is 55 degrees. A common add-on you'll hear this is bearing 55 degrees. The last we talk about is a compass. If you were looking at a compass, you can see that if you had a compass in front of you, your phone probably has one. You can point around, you can find a bearing of 55 degrees. But what you'll also see is you're not heading 55 degrees. You are 35 degrees north of east. Okay? So what this does is it goes, okay, you're going to head straight east and then tilt it 35 degrees. Whenever you have a compass direction, it'll always be an angle with measure to north, east, south, or west. So in this case, 35 degrees north of east. You go start from east, you go up 35 degrees. You could also, though it's less common, you typically go with the smaller angle, say this is 55 degrees east of north. That is another way you could say this. Pretty messy, but there's just three different rules you kind of need to keep track of, and we will use them or possibly see them largely interchangeably. I will tend to stick to math, but every so often I will have to use problems with compass or bearings because of the realities of the world we live in. If we're talking about airplanes, we're going to be talking about bearing a lot. If we're talking about ship sailing, bearing's also fairly common, or maybe compass directions. To make these problems applicable to the real world, we have to go this way. So, with that said, let's go ahead, erase this, put a new one up there. This time we're going to put this angle here. Now, I'm going to ask you, once I put this in, to give me the math degrees, the bearing, and the compass. So, if I put this in as 10 degrees, what is the math degree? What is the bearing? What is the compass? If you want to try this on your own, go ahead and feel free to pause after I'm done talking. If you'd rather just follow along with me as I solve it, that works too. I'm going to work from the top down. Start with math. So in math, I go around, I start at 0, 90, 180, and then I go all the way through to wherever this is. So I'd go like so. Now there's two ways I think about this. The first is, well, it's 10 degrees short of being 270, so it has to be 260. The other way I will think about this is, okay, if this is 10, this side has to be 80. This little chunk here has to be 80, at which point it's 180 plus 80 gives me 260. Either way, in this case, it is 260 degrees. You might see counterclockwise added onto that or CCW, but typically it's just written as 260 degrees. If I want to talk about this in terms of bearing, I start from north and I go clockwise around. So start from north, which is straight up and down, and go around like so. And in this case, 0, 90, 180, and then 10 more degrees gives me a bearing of 190 degrees. Bearing 190 is how you'd hear that in the movies or over the radar. For a compass, we will typically measure from the closest cardinal direction, northeast, southwest. This is very close to south, so in this case, we would say it's 10 degrees west of south. Because from south, we go out to the side 10 degrees. We could also, strictly speaking, go this way, at which point it would be the 80 degrees I mentioned previously. It would be 80 degrees south. Either one of these are correct. Doesn't particularly matter, but it does keep going. Just a quick way to check yourself. Whenever you're using compass, these two should add up to 90 if you flip the two signs, or flip the two directions. If you flip the directions, like we did here, the two of them should add up to 90. It's a way to think about it. It's a trick I use, maybe not the most useful for you. But those are the three different ways we can talk about degrees. Why do we care? Well, when we start adding vectors, it becomes very important very quickly. Let's do one more as a practice problem. For our practice example problem, we have 45 degrees here from this line pointing west. What is the math angle? What is the bearing? What is the compass angle? Go to give it a try, check back in after you're done. You should get these three answers. If you're doing math, it should be 0, 90, and then either you went, okay, I went 45 more beyond that, or I was 45 short of 180. 90 plus 45 or 180 minus 45 will give you the same answer either way, 135 degrees. Counterclockwise, positive, take your pick. If you're talking bearing, like a plane, a ship, 0 is here, you go all the way around, 90, 180, 270, and then 45 more, takes you to 315. Again, alternatively, you can go, okay, you're 45 short of a full circle being 360 degrees, 315. If you're talking compass, your two closest directions to this line are north and west. So you're either measuring from west, you go up 45 degrees to north, so you're 45 degrees north of west. Start at west, go up northwards 45 degrees. Or if you're measuring from north, you'd have to go west from there, so you're 45 degrees west of north because 45 degrees is halfway through. If you got this, congratulations. You didn't doing much better the first time than I doing much better with this the first time than I did. If you're not getting it, don't worry. There's some practice problems just for you.